Hello, everybody. So nice to see you here. My name is Betsy Bradley, and I'm the president of Vassar, and I have the tremendous honor of opening this session. So welcome to the very first collaborative art exhibit Vassar and Spelman colleges have worked together on ever, and hopefully many more to come in the future. It is a momentous occasion, as it is the first show in the traveling exhibit, Silver Linings, celebrating the Spelman Art Collection. The new president of Spelman, Helene Gale, is a good friend of mine, so I wish she were here. Let's pretend she is here, but what a thrill to have that kind of leadership and this wonderful, wonderful art exhibit. Spelman and Vassar have a lot in common. Spelman was founded in 1881 and Vassar in 1861. And was from the beginning an important cultural hub in Atlanta, Georgia. The historically black liberal arts college for women began collecting art objects in 1899, much as Vassar started with an art gallery from Matthew Vassar from its very beginning. Both colleges knew and recognized the importance of art in liberal arts education. The Spelman College Museum of Fine Arts opened in 1996, much as the Francis Lehman Loeb Art Center opened in 1993, again on similar paths. The Spelman College Museum of Art had the mission to uplift art by and about women of the African diaspora. This goal aligns well with Spelman College's dedication to academic excellence in education of women of African descent. In honor of the Spelman College Museum of Art's 25 years and the Spelman much longer legacy of collecting art, they organized this wonderful anniversary exhibit, Silver Linings, with a selection of works from the permanent collection, dating back to the early 1900s until now. And I think most of you saw it, and did it knock your socks off? This academic year at Vassar is also very important for our celebrations of two anniversaries. 30 years in this building, designed by Cesar Pelli, and completed in 1993, as I said, and then 160 years of collecting art at Vassar. We could not be more thrilled than to welcome Spelman College with its staff and students to campus, so we may be all inspired by this one-of-a-kind exhibit of the art of the African diaspora. Thank you so very, very much.
Good evening. I'm Bart Thurber, and I'm the director here at the Francis Lehman Loeb Art Center. Boy, I haven't even paid you yet. I just have to take a moment to just take all this in, because this has been an extraordinary effort. I've told the story to a couple people this evening, that I saw this show and was introduced to Liz Andrews in March of 2022. So that's just not quite a year, a little more than a year and a half ago. It's extraordinary for an exhibition to come together. Well, they already had organized the exhibition, but to put it on the road and all the steps that were necessary. And as I mentioned to Liz this evening, is that when I saw the show at that time in Atlanta, I was so just taken by the works of art, how compelling they were, how she had brought all of this together with the amazing team at Spelman. And I immediately went up to her and I said, we've got to collaborate, we've got to work together. And I came across as a crazy man. So then I called up Mary Kay Lombino, my colleague, deputy director and curator, and I said, Mary Kay, can you go down to Atlanta, meet with Liz, and assure her that, yes, I am a crazy man, but I have good intentions. And from there, this collaboration has developed. And so there's so many people to thank, which I won't be able to this evening, because I really want to turn this over to our panelist, our wonderful guest. So this, again, it's so meaningful to have this remarkable collection from the Spelman College, Silver Linings, for the benefit of students, faculty, but especially there are so many of our community members here today. I also want to express our heartfelt gratitude to the Art Bridges Foundation that helped logistically and financially to travel the show. The Loeb, as you heard, is the first venue for Silver Linings exhibition, which will tour 4 other college campuses and cities across the United States over the course of the next 2 years. Additional funding for this initiative also comes from the Friends of the Francis Lehman Art Center, for whom I am eternally grateful for all the work that they've done for the decades that led up to the opening of the museum 30 years ago that allow us opportunities to reach out and do projects of this kind and magnitude. Since my arrival at Vassar 4 years ago, just about exactly 4 years ago, we have leaned into expanding our engagement with the Poughkeepsie community. A number of representatives are here from the school district, from celebrating the African spirit. Carmen, I said I would do a wonderful pitch for celebrating the African spirit, who's been a great... I'm going to make back some of that money, so... And again, so many others, the Artifact, the Dutchess County Historical Society, so many others. So this is an opportunity because this type of an exhibition helps us bridge between the campus and community, for which we are continually striving to obtain. It's also forging new partnerships, like with Spelman College, Museum of Fine Art, so wonderfully represented here, as you'll soon see. Today, we are further enhancing our outreach efforts with Bloomberg Connects. So if you haven't already seen, Bloomberg Philanthropies sponsors a wonderful guide app for you to access the collections and exhibitions of 300 institutions around the globe. And we're really delighted to be a part of that. And Amanda Potter and Mary Kay and so many others have really been instrumental in pulling this together in record time for us to be able to feature Silver Linings as a part of this new initiative. So if you haven't already, please download the app. And finally, one of the contributors to that app is Tanisha Carter Johnson, class of 2024. She's clearly got a bigger fan club here than I do. I'm not, I'm not jealous. And she worked with us here at the Francis Lehman Loeb Art Center as a curatorial intern and was instrumental on developing this exhibition, as well as the beautiful installation of the G's Ben print that's alongside it and the beautiful brochure. So you can hear her voice directly on the app. And with that, I'm going to actually turn it over to Tanisha to welcome to.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I am Tanisha Carter Johnson, a graduating senior. On time, yes. Graduating senior art history major, curatorial studies minor, originally from Kansas City, Kansas, hailing at the illustrious Spelman College. Yes, love spelling, love spelling. I would like to preface this introduction with a quote by James Baldwin. History is not the past, it is the present. We carry our history with us. We are our history. That is representative of this space tonight. It is an honor to be here to celebrate this now traveling exhibition, commemorating the many figures that have came to and from the Atlanta University Center and molded arts and culture as we know it today. As a Loeb summer curatorial intern, I had the privilege and honor of assisting in the transition of the show from its home institution to Vassar College, which feels fitting with our overlapping histories. My heart is full seeing all of the faces eager and excited to be a part of this celebration, and I truly cannot articulate the joy that it brings me to be at the epicenter of history being made in the present. It is because of Spelman College that I've gained immeasurable knowledge and wisdom, thousands of sisters across the globe, and unwavering confidence in myself to leave the world better and a little more creative than I found it. I thank Vassar College greatly for embracing me in this space and providing me the resources and support to learn from the experience and successfully organize a gallery show, Interwoven Histories, Prints from G's Bin Quilting Collective, located in the Spotlight Gallery outside of the Silver Lining Show. Following this discussion, I invite you all to visit these robust shows and be present with the stories being told. Tonight, we will hear from our amazing panelists discussing more about the fruition of the show and more about the Atlanta University Center Art History and Curatorial Studies Collective, which I myself am a proud member of. So without further ado, let me introduce our panelists. First, we have Dr. Liz Andrews. Dr. Andrews is an artist, curator, museum professional, and leader who is dedicated to the arts and social justice. She has worked with arts organizations across the nation and has served as executive director of the Spelman College Museum of Fine Arts since August of 2021. Among many curatorial projects, she co-curated Black American Portraits, an exhibition that reframes portraiture to center Black American subjects, sitters, and spaces, and includes artwork spanning over 200 years. She also co-edited and contributed to a companion publication entitled Black American Portraits, which was published in February 2023. At Spelman, Andrews has mounted 3 exhibitions: Silver Linings, celebrating the Spelman Art Collection, Spring 2022, Lava Thomas, Homecoming, Fall 2022, and currently Black American Portraits, which she co-curated with Christine Y. Kim at LACMA, Los Angeles County Museum of Art. Prior to joining Spelman College, Andrews was executive administrator in director's office of LACMA, where she expanded her role to collaborate on projects and priorities across museum departments, including diversity and inclusion efforts, curating exhibitions, and commissioning an augmented reality monument dedicated to the life and legacy of Biddy Mason by artist Ada Pinkston. Andrews has a BA in American Studies from Wesleyan University, a MA in Arts Politics from the NYU Tisch School of Arts, and a Ph.D. in Cultural Studies from George Mason University. Liz Andrews, everyone. Next, we have Karen Comer Lowe. For more than 25 years, Karen Comer Lowe has worked in curatorial and education positions at museums, galleries, and arts institutions. She has held positions at the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery, the Tubman Museum, and the Whitney Museum of American Art. As an art advisor, Lowe has worked with corporations, private schools, university, and private clients in the Southeast. In spring 2022, Lowe curated This Is America, The Unsettling Contradictions in American Identity, the first solo exhibition works by Genevieve Gagnard in Atlanta at the Atlanta Contemporary. In addition, Lowe has lectured on art throughout the region and worked with notable artists including Hank Willis Thomas, Carrie Mae Weems, Radcliffe Bailey, and Elizabeth Catlett on past projects. Her work has been featured in Artsy, Art News, Culture Type, and Sugarcane Magazine. She is currently working at Spelman College as Curator-in-Residence at the Spelman College Museum. The Curator-in-Residence position is a new role that bridges the museum program with the AUC Art Collective and Curatorial Studies, with support from the Walton Family Foundation. During her tenure, Lowe will organize exhibitions and continue to engage students about curatorial practice. Karen Comer Lowe. Lastly, we have Dr. Cheryl Finley. Dr. Cheryl Finley, a curator of contemporary African diasporic art, photography, and performance. She is the inaugural director of the Atlanta University Center Art History and Curatorial Studies Collective and distinguished visiting professor in the Department of Art and Visual Culture at Spelman College. With nearly 20 years of research on historic and contemporary images of the transatlantic slave trade, Finley's seminal study, Committed to Memory, The Art of the Slave Ship Icon, published in 2018, was the winner of the Historians of British Art Book Prize. Another of Finley's work, My Soul Has Grown Deep, Black Art from the American South, accompanied the exhibition History Refused to Die, highlights from the Souls Grown Deep Foundation at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York in 2018. Finley has taught undergraduate lectures and graduate seminars using an interdisciplinary multimedia comparative approach to topics such as contemporary African diasporic art, the art market, African American art, African American cinema, photography, and the archive, cultural heritage, tourism, and museum studies. Finley enjoys exposing her students to significant and enriching archives and cultural centers on campus and sharing her experience of contemporary art and the art market in New York with her students by visiting galleries, museums, auction houses, artists, and private collectors. Finley holds a Ph.D. in African American Studies and History of Art from Yale University. Without further ado, I'd like to bring our panelists to the stage for tonight's talk. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, I'm Cheryl Finley, and this is my colleague, Liz Andrews and Karen Comer Lowe. And we're really, really excited to join you all today. And I just wanted to begin by thanking dear, 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 amazing, amazing Tanisha Carter-Johnson. We love you. And I also just want to give a shout out and a thanks to the president of Vassar College, President Bradley, to you, Bart Thurber, Mary Kay, thank you so much, and Amanda Potter, great to meet you. And also, again, my colleagues here at Spelman. I just want to also shout out the Alice L. Walton Foundation and Art Bridges for making this collaboration possible, and I know that it's going to be something that we'll be doing for, I hope, years to come. So I'm going to begin with sort of a little background story about the program that I direct, the AUC Art Collective. We're entering our 5th year at the campus of Spelman College, but also at Morehouse and at Clark Atlanta University. We're at the largest historically black college and university consortium in the country. And this is a photograph that we often like to begin with that shows us on a field study. We do a lot of field study to enable students to not only learn in the classroom, but also to have the ability to get out there in the world to places like Vassar College, to places like the National African American Museum on the Mall in Washington, D.C., to meet the leaders in the fields that they wish to enter, and to meet people who can become part of their professional networks. But I'm going to go backwards in time to about the beginning, I would say, of the founding of the museum in 1996, but even before that, to give a sense of the long history or the long arc of history at the AUC of the history of art, practicing artists who were there, as well as those who taught, and students, as well as even collectors and people who were alums who made huge donations to Spelman College. And this kind of funny little slide that we have here is one that's going to be part of the story. And the image of the woman on the upper right is Mabel Murphy Smythe-Haith, who gave a significant collection of African art that she acquired as a U.S. ambassador to Spelman College in 1980 that formed one of the core parts of the collection early on. And the slide here also represents an initiative that we had in a class that I taught that's part of the Curatorial Studies capstone called the Curatorial Practicum, wherein students create their own exhibitions at the end of the program. And it was one wherein we looked at not only her collection, but also an exhibition that was formed from it called Art by Metamorphosis. And you see the book on the lower right-hand corner, and also an image of Dele Jegede, who was the specialist who was also a part of that, that exhibition as the curator. I also just want to give a shout out to Destiny Fillmore. I'm sorry, Destiny, but you're here in the audience. You can raise your hand, please. Destiny is a scholar, a curator, and she is in the first class of students who graduated from our program. She just finished her MA at Williams College, and She, like Tanisha and Vieira, who's here also visiting from Spelman College, are the future. They're our future, and we're also so proud of you. Okay, I'm going to keep it moving because Amanda's going to keep me honest. So I'm going to go way back, like I said, and I just wanted to begin with people like Harriet Powers. Harriet Powers was a formerly enslaved woman, but she was a master quilter, and the Atlanta University wives actually commissioned a quilt of her, and there was another quilt that was commissioned of her as well, probably better known as the Bible quilt. This is titled Pictorial Quilt, and this is, just a sense of, the history, the deep history that we at Spelman College and at the Atlanta University Center are immersed in. I'm going to fast forward just a few years to the turn of the 20th century when W.E.B. Du Bois, who was teaching at the Atlanta University Center, at Atlanta University, was commissioned to organize an exhibition on the occasion of the 1900 Paris Exposition. And for that exhibition, he commissioned a photographer named Thomas Askew, who happened to be just the university photographer, if you can imagine, in the late 19th century, turn of the 20th century. And Askew contributed these images, these portraits of students at Atlanta University, but also people who would have been part of the faculty who worked there. And it was part of a show that he organized, including some of his very well-known graphics that were demographics demonstrating, how Black people, after only 35 years after the end of slavery, were part of this, new Negro, if you will, class, part of, the 20th century, not the 19th century. And it was a really important exhibition that wowed many of the audiences who would have seen it in Paris in 1900. So this is, again, part of this history, part of a history that includes photography and the history of art, but also leading sociologists like Du Bois, and the way that even data science, that's what we call it today, but that's what he was doing back around the turn of the 20th century. Hale Woodruff, I know you've all had the opportunity to see some of his work in this brilliant, gorgeous exhibition, Silver Linings. And Hale Woodruff was an artist who came to Atlanta around the early part of the 1930s to establish the art departments at Atlanta University. Sorry, I keep saying center because that's what we're called now. It's Atlanta University until about 1988 when Clark College and Atlanta University merged to create Clark Atlanta University, which is what the institution is now called. Anyway, Hale Woodruff, he was there in about 1930-31, and he begins the art department at Spelman and at Atlanta University. He's also very well known for having been a muralist and also especially having painted the Amistad murals that were commissioned by Talladega College in 1938 to celebrate the 1939 100th anniversary of the Amistad Uprising. And I also thought that it would be important to point out Nancy Elizabeth Prophet, who came from Rhode Island. She was the first Black woman to graduate from the Rhode Island School of Design. And she came to Spelman College to be part of the faculty. And I love this little historic, piece here from the Spelman Messenger. That's our little internal, magazine. And it notes, of course, that, she's an internationally known sculptor and that she's been secured for the Department of Art at Spelman, and how she had studied, not just at RISD, but also at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, et cetera. So these were exciting times in the 1930s, so exciting that we have other ways that the Messenger had also noted the work, especially of Hale Woodruff and his establishment of the Atlanta Annuals. And you have to imagine this time period and the fact that, Spelman is in the South, in the state of Georgia, and but it wasn't only in the state of Georgia and the South that Black artists did not have the opportunity to show their works in major museums, but rather that was basically the norm in much of the country. And so Hale Woodruff, having studied in Mexico, having spent time in Washington, D.C., and in New York City as well, he took note of the Whitney painting annuals which were going on, and he decided, well, why not have the Atlanta Annual? And he establishes the Atlanta Annuals, and for almost about 30 years, from 1942 until about 1970, they had these annual competitions where there were juried competitions that nationwide the word went out, even throughout the African diaspora, to the Caribbean and even to Europe and the continent. The word went out for people to come and submit their works for annual prizes. And this has ultimately resulted in the large collection of original works at the Clark Atlanta University Art Museum, which is a stunning museum also on our campus that is a place where our students can go and visit and study. And just to give a sense of some of the other luminaries that have been in and around our campuses for some time, Griff Davis, a major photographer. He was actually, speaking of university photographers, he was the Morehouse College photographer. He attended Morehouse. He was also a good friend of Dr. King, and this is one of the images that he took in Accra on the occasion of Ghana becoming the first independent nation on the continent. He also made this very famous photograph of Langston Hughes. And then there are other images here where we see other artists who would have been working at their crafts at the Atlanta University Center in the 1960s. Artists including Linda Good Bryant, who just had a major retrospective at the Museum of Modern Art. Artists, of course, like Amy Sherald, who was a Clark Atlanta University alumna. And then just to get back to the work of Mabel Murphy Smythe-Haith and her generous donation to the Spelman College Museum, this is just one example of the works that was in that collection of the work that she acquired as an ambassador in Africa in the 1970s. And again, this is kind of like a cognitive map or route, if you will, that would have showed, where she was in West Africa and her, role at Spelman as a student. She actually finishes her degree at Mount Holyoke, but gives this work to Spelman College, and how this resulted in an exhibition called Art by Metamorphosis that was at the beginning of the museum, not in the building where we're located now, which is a museum that opened in 1996, but in 1988, this exhibition was part of one of the earlier museum exhibitions in a different space on campus. And as I mentioned before, and this is just another image here where you see Mabel Murphy Smythe-Haith with the collection, and also as an ambassador. And then I can maybe talk about this at another time, and I see that my time is up, so I just have maybe one more minute I'm going to take. But this is part of the class that we ran and the way in which we looked at this historic collection and thinking about things like how we might consider things like restitution, which I know is a large conversation now amongst many museums that have works from different cultures that were acquired in ways that may not have been equal, but also how we might want to think about new or current technologies like blockchain as a way to consider how registrarial work in museums might be done in a more evenly distributed way. But again, it's kind of too much to go into with the time remaining. Again, this is the book that came from the exhibition Art by Metamorphosis and the illustrious curator. And I also wanted to give a shout out to Dr. Janetta Cole, who was one of our most amazing presidents, and who was, the visionary too behind the building where the Spelman College Museum of Fine Art now resides. It opened in 1996, and she's pictured there with Donald Stewart, the previous president. And I'm going to jump past over this just because it's a little bit extra, and then reach out to some of our other alums, including Adrienne Edwards, who's at the Whitney, Andrea Barnwell Brownlee, the previous director of the museum, and of course Naima Keith, who's at LACMA in education, to think about the legacy, the long legacy of Spelman women, including, of course, none other than Dr. Mary Schmidt Campbell, our most recent past president of Spelman College, who was for many years at the Tisch School of the Arts, and when she came to Spelman, had a mission to really think about how the arts could become central and very relevant to the life of Spelman College women. And just quickly about the program that I direct, we're an academic program with a mission. This is our 5th year. We're educating the next generation of art historians, curators, and art industry leaders. We have an art history major and minor and a curatorial studies minor. The idea is around interdisciplinarity. We have paid summer internships, career pathway initiatives, year-round field study. We're interested in things like art conservation, the way that we can diversify that field, and many other fields as well. And the image on the right-hand side, far right, Tanisha can tell you about her time in Venice at the occasion of the Loophole Retreat with Simone Lee. We also have really innovative classes that are year-long classes that focus on artists like Simone Lee. We also go to different institutions, including not just art museums, but also places like the Legacy Museum in Montgomery. And our students in the early college program have the opportunity to present their work at our museum on campus at Spelman, but also at the High Museum. And we're just excited about our relationship with Spelman and with the Spelman College Museum of Fine Art, especially through the work that Dr. Andrews is doing, also the work that Comer Lowe is doing as Curator-in-Residence, and how we have, for example, an opportunity for students to do work in a post-baccalaureate program that is funded by the Lichtenstein Foundation. And on the lower left-hand side, the two young women that you see on the left are our Lichtenstein Fellows from the inaugural class. So museum ambassadors have the opportunity to, like Tanisha has done many times, give tours in our museums and also support the program with the museum. Our graduates go on to many, many illustrious places, and this is just an example of some of the few places where our graduates have gone. They are really driving the change, and I just, again, want to say thank you so much. This is a slide that celebrated our second symposium, which was in honor of Black American portraits, with Dr. Andrews there on one anchor, and I'm on the other, and some of the people that we've already discussed, and our most amazing president, Dr. Helene Gale, right there in the center. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. So I am Comer Lowe, and I am the first curator-in-residence at the Spelman College Museum. My position is unique in that it is the merge between the AUC Collective and the Spelman College Museum. As part of my position, I am there as a mentor to some of the aspiring curators like Tanisha Carter and other students, and I'm also able to curate exhibitions, as I did with the co-curating this exhibition, Silver Linings. It's really a unique program, and it's nothing like I've ever seen. Dr. Finley just mentioned some of the field study that we do with the students, and we really have an opportunity to get to know the students and to truly mentor them as they move beyond Spelman College into either graduate school or into their careers. I wanted to talk a little bit about my background and how it all ties everything together. I'm a graduate of Howard University, and HU, come on, HU, come on. We have to do that. But I'm a graduate of Howard University, and I was an art history major. And after leaving Howard, before I went to graduate school, I came back to Atlanta. And as part of trying to find myself, to figure out what I wanted to do, I was called in to volunteer at the new Spelman College Museum. At that time, it was 1996, and they had an exhibition called Bearing Witness. I was a volunteer, but I was able to meet some legendary artists who are now either no longer with us or people who we read about and see in many, many major museums, like Barbara Chase Rabeau, Valerie Maynard, and many, many other legendary artists. I was also introduced to people like Elizabeth Catlett, who we have a wonderful sculpture by in the exhibition. As part of an art history student at Howard University, my education was centered in Black art. And I learned about many of these artists that we have on view here. And the way that I approach art is that the masters of art for me are Elizabeth Catlett, Jacob Lawrence, Romare Bearden. That's the way that I was taught, and that's the way that my education was centered. And so And being called in to co-curate this exhibition with Dr. Andrews, I was really excited to go into the collection and to see these works. And some of the works I had seen before, some of the works I remembered from previous exhibitions, but I was able to go in and say, oh, what about the Lorna Simpsons? Or to see the Catlett sculpture and to know the history behind it because of the way that my formal education was centered. To be a curator is to tell stories with extraordinary and interesting works of art. And so for the Silver Linings exhibition, I want to highlight a few works that I was even able to discover. You know, that's the wonderful thing about curating, is that not only do you go in familiar with pieces, you also are discovering works. One of my wonderful discoveries was Betty Blayton Taylor. This extraordinary piece that's on your brochure of this circular abstraction with the vibrant color. I wanted to wear yellow in honor of that painting. But she was an artist and an educator who created paintings, printmaking, and sculpture, and she also built her career in New York during the 1970s. And she refers to these abstract paintings as spiritual paintings, spiritual abstractions. And she created them in the circular formation to create an entry point for the viewer. She felt this was a representation of the expansiveness and the full circle of life. She was also an active educator and arts advocate, and she co-founded the Children's Art Carnival, which was associated with the Museum of Modern Art's Harlem School of Art. And the fun fact, one of her students was Jean-Michel Basquiat. That is a ooh. Say that again, ooh and ah. But she's also one of the co-founders of the Studio Museum in Harlem. And she was on the board of the Studio Museum of Harlem from 1965 until 1977. Her circular, vibrant paintings create a portrait for the viewer to enter the painting and to experience it more expansively through her expansive strokes of color. This painting is called Vibes Penetrated, and it is part of the permanent collection of the Spelman College Museum. Elizabeth Catlett. I can't say enough about Elizabeth Catlett. I had the honor of working directly with her, and I still have her phone number in my phone. I make sure I keep it with me. But she was a granddaughter of former slaves, and Catlett was raised in Washington, D.C. Catlett was refused admission to the Carnegie Institute of Technology due to racial discrimination, so therefore, Catlett enrolled at the illustrious Howard University. This is a place where she was taught by Lois Mailou Jones and philosopher Alain Locke, amongst many others. In 1962, she moved to Mexico, and then she was barred from returning to the U.S. She became a citizen of Mexico, but the U.S. government barred her and associated her with the Communist Party. Celebrated as one of the masters of Black art, museums and galleries have held more than 50 solo exhibitions of Catlett sculptures and prints, and included important retrospectives of her work in 1993, 1998, as late as 2022, and I'm sure there'll be many others to come. Motherhood has been a consistent theme throughout her career. The work in Silver Linings, Standing Woman, Woman Walking, 1987, is a quintessential Catlett. This sculpture stands flat-footed with the wide hips and the strong stance of a Black woman. With her dress hugging her curves of the body, the arms are extended as the right arm caresses her head and the left hand clenches in a fist, as to indicate the end to a long day of work. This work was commissioned by the Cosbys and for the Spelman College, and it was donated in 1987. That's another view of the catlet with the beautiful alcove of Benny Andrews. And then we have Deborah Roberts juxtaposed with Nancy Elizabeth Prophet's work. So these works by Deborah Roberts is a living artist, and she was born in 1962, and she's a resident of Austin, Texas. These are earlier works of Deborah Roberts, not the work that you would see today, but she is a mixed media artist who works with collage works, and she challenges the notions of ideal beauty. Her work has been exhibited internationally across the US and Europe, and she centers her body of work on children from the ages of 8 to 12. As the subject of her collages, she wants to engage the commentary of what ideal beauty is, stereotypes, and myths related to the issues of Black children. These collage works, Grills, Not of Me, were acquired by the museum in 2018 during a successful solo exhibition called The Evolution of Mimi. This exhibition was at the Spelman College Museum, right at the cusp of her career. Spelman, I wanted to mention that because Spelman often is groundbreaking in presenting artists before their careers, as we say, blows up on the scene. During the presentation of Silver Linings, I chose to juxtapose the works of her, as I said, with this head in ebony, and this is by Nancy Elizabeth Prophet. The head in ebony is dated to be around 1926 to 1929, and you can see the similarities of the work, and they really speak to one another. This part, the part of the joy of curating for me, is to be able to work with historically Black works as well as contemporary works, and to be able to put them in conversation. This work was entered into the collection during this exhibition, and it will be there for years to come. Now I bring Dr. Liz Andrews.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming out on this rainy evening in Poughkeepsie. We're so thrilled to be here. Thank you, Bart, for coming down and reaching out to me when you came to Atlanta, because this picture I wanted to include here because Silver Linings was the show, the first show that I did when I came to Spelman in the fall of 2021. And it opened the museum after 2 years of closure. So Silver Linings, why Silver Linings? It's the 25th anniversary show, recognizing the fact that while Spelman, as we've heard, has been doing work around the art really since the beginning, it's only since 1996 that we've had a museum to look after the collection. And so we wanted to represent the 25th silver year of the show, but also the silver linings of the fact that we were deep in COVID. In fact, in order for Bart to come visit me at the museum, he had to take a PCR test 5 days ahead, so you know he wanted to see that show. So this exhibition is really special to me because it was my way of getting to know the collection. And you can probably tell, but Karen really loves art and is an incredible curator. And when I came to the museum, even before she came on as Curator-in-Residence, I asked her to co-curate this exhibition with me, and we had so much fun in the galleries, in the storage, saying, what conversations do we want to see right now? Because I think for a lot of people, they don't know that Spelman College has a collection, or perhaps that we even have a museum. So again, Spelman College was founded in 1881, And the art department has been around since at least 1931, the museum coming in 1996. And as Karen said, it has often been the place where artists have a solo exhibition right before they blow up. And that's because Spelman has always been committed to exhibiting art by Black artists. Now, the museum itself, our mission is to uplift women of the African diaspora, Black women artists. But you might ask, okay, if we're all about Black women artists, we know that not every artist in Silver Linings is a woman. Why is that? Spelman College has been a keeper of the culture from the beginning. And so we have to have paintings by Hale Woodruff, who founded the art department, Romery Bearden, a collage, several actually. We have contemporary artists like Glenn Ligon. And so the collection and the museum are hand in hand, but the collection is deeper and even longer than the museum and the charter around Black women itself. These are all views from the installation at Spelman. The painting, Vibes Penetrated, that is 40 years old, it's from 1983 and looks like it was painted yesterday, sits alongside, you'll see in the gallery in a case, Howardina Pindell, a piece with another circular theme where she's got pieces that she took out of a hole punch and made a collage out of, right next to the abstract work of Hale Woodruff. A nice view of that Howardina Pindell. And in the background, several works by Black women artists, including Selma Burke's sculpture, and abstract works. I think that at this moment in time, Black figurative work, frankly, is in vogue. People want to see the Amy Sherrilds of the world, who we uplift because Amy Sherrild, of course, went to Clark Atlanta University, part of the Atlanta University Center, and she took her painting classes at Spelman. In case you don't know who Amy Sherrild is, you might know her from the official presidential portrait of First Lady Michelle Obama that toured the country a couple years ago. So we wanted to have a history that told a larger story than what you might hear from gallery shows or articles in the New York Times today. So this Sam Gilliam diptych on the right and the Hale Woodruff on the left. And I have to say that one of the most beautiful things about working at the Spelman College Museum of Fine Art is the gallery space itself. You walk in and there are these gorgeous cherry wood floors that shout out to the facilities management team because they keep them looking immaculate at all times. You see that gorgeous Faith Ringgold quilt that greets you when you walk in the door here, a perfect reflection in the floor. It has almost a chapel-like experience when you walk in, and the architecture itself feels like it gives a reverence to the art in a way that I think is very fitting for an HBCU that has done so much to make sure that artists get their just due within our grounds, if nowhere else, over time. Then we have pieces by many women artists working today. For instance, here we have Lorna Simpson Details. And thank you, Mary Kay. Shout out to you for arranging this work in a different way in the gallery here. I love to see works travel and be reinterpreted by different curators. So as you encounter the work on the left, where we have a grid of Lorna Simpson's Details, here at Vassar, you'll see that kind of exploded, so you can approach the work in different ways. On the left, I think one of the most powerful works in the show and one of my favorite works of art of all times by the incredible Carrie Mae Weems. It's a diptych, a self-portrait. You'll see it in the gallery, but she wears a quilted dress and she holds up a mirror to herself. Looking in the mirror, the title says, "I looked and failed to see what so frightened you." So this piece, I think, is a really apt work to think about what we do at Spelman College, because Spelman was founded to uplift Black women. And for this work, I think that Carrie Mae Weems is talking to the ways that historically Black women and Black people have been viewed through a dominant lens, through a dominant gaze, as frightening, as angry, as lesser than. And she's saying, I look at myself and I don't see it. And so this exhibition, coming to Vassar College, and then on from here to the Harn in Florida, Boise Museum of Art, it'll be at the University of Michigan Art Museum. I think it's a very powerful story to tell because it's frankly only since 2020 that many museums and cultural institutions and different entities have started to really value the great works of the 20th century that Comer Lowe had the privilege of studying as the center of art history, but has not been so for the vast majority of art history students. And so, another view of the gallery overall with the incredible Elizabeth Catlett, the oldest work in the show right at the center, Henry Ossawa Tanner. And I want to end with this image, two small ambrotypes by Myra Green, who is an artist and actually is the head of the art department at Spelman College. So we roll deep when it comes to the arts, and the students are at the center of our reason for being here, all of us. It's such a pleasure to work with Cheryl's program, with incredible students who are already so bright, so sharp, and will also have that privilege of seeing art history through a corrective lens and be able to bring that into the world for future generations. So when we think about the future of Spelman College Museum, the future of art history, I'm heartened by the questions that our students bring, by the creativity that they bring, because the arts has notoriously been an insular and elite, maybe even alienating field. I spoke with someone earlier who said museums can feel stuffy and unwelcoming. And in some ways, it makes sense. It's in the DNA. The phenomenon of museums is only a couple hundred years old, really, and part and parcel to colonialism. It helped establish hierarchies in society. Europe has art. Asia and Africa have artifacts to be studied by Europeans. And so it is the history. That's where we come from. However, I do think that cultural institutions, museums are worthwhile entities, especially when we live up to our charters and really engage our audiences. I've had several really inspiring conversations tonight. Carmen, thank you for the work that you do here in Poughkeepsie to unearth the histories, the hidden histories of enslaved African people in this place, in this community. I love that the Loeb is partnering with the school district to make sure that students here experience this exhibition, but not only experience this exhibition, but come into a museum space and are invited to do so and feel like they belong there. So as you walk through the show, as you see this incredible art that has been collected over generations and kept and cherished, this is something really special. It's about more than this particular presentation in the galleries here. It's about the fact that many of these artists were actively excluded, even though their work is now seen by so many as the great works of the 20th century. And so we are thrilled to open it here at Vassar College. And I'm so thankful to the Art Bridges Foundation for organizing and funding this tour, but I'll say Bart was there before they were even on board. We were ready to bring it to Vassar come hell or high water. So thank you for that. And I truly hope that the faculty, the students, and the community feel at home here and find something inspirational in these works of art, in painting, sculpture, drawing, collage, and so forth. So thank you. All right. So
We have maybe 10 minutes, and we could spend the time speaking amongst ourselves, or we could also invite questions from the audience. But before we make that decision, I just want to give a shout out to Lisa Gale Collins, Dr. Lisa Gale Collins, who's a member of the faculty here and who I know has worked really closely with so many students, and who has a brand new book out, and just happy that you're here. Thank you.
I actually have a question for you all, and that is, what do you think students of Vassar College, because we work with the students at the AUC, and we're thinking of from a Black-centered perspective, what do you think students in the audience should know or hear as they're approaching this exhibition and the works in the show?
You go, curator. Okay. I mean, I think. Okay. So I'm the art historian on stage tonight. I mean, as are you, and as are you. We all are. But I just think from the historical perspective, I think that it's really important for, as my colleagues have shared, and you, Karen, in the specific kind of, close reading of some of the works in the exhibition and in our collection, and you, Liz, in talking about the role of the museum and the history and legacy of the museum, is to know that this exhibition is one that really represents a long and rich history. It's a history of art that relates specifically to Spelman College and how the arts have been central to the founding of Spelman College. I would venture to say that every single HBCU that has ever been in existence, including the 107 that still exist, have in many ways centered the arts. Some have had art departments, others have had illustrious artists, who were at the helm. Others have art museums, and we're gifted to have one, and also to have, this team and the leadership at the museum. But I think knowing that history is there is, as long as President Bradley said, almost as long as Vassar College. And to think about what that means, it's just not necessarily, a length of time, but it's also thinking about who the individual artists are, what works of art they made and why, under what conditions, that it's actually been collected and preserved. I mentioned conservation in my remarks, and that, you know, through the work of art conservation, we actually have the ability to have these works still in our collections and to care for them. If we talk about curatorial practice, and we have curators here in the making, you know, it's about care. At the root word, it's about care. And so I think that this exhibition represents a legacy of care, a care for our history, a care for our art, a care for Black women. And also I think it signals, you know, through your work, but also through your work, Tanisha, and also the, you know, the idea that you've had to have this ability to bridge our two institutions, you know, care for the future and for students.
Okay, I think she covered everything. Yeah.
Okay. One thing, of course, I ask it, and then I think of an answer myself. So I went to college down the way at Wesleyan University, and being here, I haven't been back to Wesleyan in a while, but the feel of the kind of Northeast New England school, that small residential campus feel, brought back good feels. And I'll say, so Wesleyan is known as Diversity University, and I think that it is.
I've never heard that before.
Oh yeah, oh, there's whole movies and books about it. But I will say that I felt very much alive, and I think Black students at Wesleyan, when I was there, felt an ownership and in a sense of this is our place on campus. And I hope that Black students here, students of color here, feel that way and find something inspiring and empowering within the gallery walls of this exhibition. I hope that you feel a sense of welcoming here in this exhibition on your campus. I think that we can go ahead and take some questions from the audience.
Hi, I'm Harrison. I'm a sophomore. I just have a question. How do you recommend that all students, and particularly Black students, challenge white supremacy in a creative way on college campuses? How do we displace white supremacy and center Blackness?
How long have we got? The first thing that comes to mind is that this is a time of exploration. This is a time, these 4-ish years that you're in college are a time to be curious, to ask questions, to take advantage of things like the museum on campus and the resources that are afforded to you. And I don't even necessarily think you have to take a hard stance in that moment, but know that this is the space to learn and to make mistakes and to ask questions and to say, you know what, I think I'm gonna write a whole paper on this thing that I'm curious about, this work of art or this artist that I'm curious about, and allow yourself to be inspired, I'll say, in that journey. But challenging white supremacy, it's a difficult thing to do at a predominantly white institution that is in a city that was built by enslaved African people. But I think even beginning to have that as your goal is the start. And you don't have to have the answer tomorrow or next month or by the end of the semester. That's a lifelong goal and challenge. So I know you want me to say, do this, and that's gonna be great. But what it actually is, keep asking yourself what that means.
And can I just add, I want to just add one thing, because you already kind of signaled it, but it's something that you can do in the classroom, in the papers that you write, in the assignments that you have. If that's your goal, there seems to me, even if you're in a chemistry class or a biology class or computer science, and it's not necessarily where you're writing out, prose or you're writing a manifesto, you can do it. If that's your goal, in every single assignment that you have, there should be a way that you can have that be your leading question, and one that you answer in the methodology and what you learn in that particular lesson or assignment. So that's just to piggyback on what you said. That's one way you can actually put it into action when you're in college during these 4 years. There was a question just a couple of rows back.
Hi, I'm a junior at Vassar College. I was really inspired by so many empowering pieces of art. I just had but it was also like a little bit disheartening to see how for so many artists, like their identity is it's such a huge problem that like that's what they focus on, which I think it's very empowering, but like, would you have a message or like any thoughts for like aspiring artists who are struggling with their identity and how they would incorporate that in their art compared to like, let's say like white artists like that don't go through the same issues?
It's a constant issue for artists of color, because we all want to be seen. But what you should do if you are an artist, are you an artist? Okay, you're right. So for those artists who are addressing issues of identity, think of creative ways of addressing that. It's been done before. No, it's been done before many, many decades and decades and decades. And so you can put that into the art that you create, but think about how can you say it differently? How can you say it in a way that's true to yourself, but create something that maybe we've never seen before? That's my short answer.
And I would also say that while all the artists in the show are Black artists, I think that many of them would not say that they were necessarily grappling with identity per se in their work, or maybe not in such a straightforward sense, because that Betty Blayton, whew, I mean this piece right here, that I think speaks to all of abstraction, the entire history of abstraction, not just to a category of art made by Black artists. So I think it's also about knowing that you are always going to be who you are and your identity evolves, and you can make art, you can make anything, you can have conversations that are transcultural, that transcend any particular continent, any particular race. So it's, I think, is something that Black artists in particular have dealt with, this idea of whether or not you are always a Black artist and always representing in that way. And I don't think you have to come down on a set way of doing things because you think that's what you're supposed to do because of who you are.
So I know we could continue for a long time, but it's unfortunately time to end. I just want to invite you all to come back and see the exhibition and keep coming back and see it. It's here until January 28th. And then, of course, it goes off to Boise and to Florida and to Michigan and I think it ends in Chattanooga, Tennessee, so you can follow it on its national tour. And just another round of applause for our wonderful panelists.